I've seen Santa Claus. Or more accurately, I've seen Santa Clauses. It happened when I was 16. Let me explain. My family was living in Mexico City for the summer. My father was working as a Fulbright Fellow for the week, so on the weekends we would all go sightseeing together. One Saturday we traveled to Tenochtitlan, ancient ruined city about 25 miles outside of Mexico City. It's an impressive sight. It contains the Pyramid of the Sun, the third largest pyramid in the world, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, a pyramid replete with ornately carved stone snakes wreathed in rock plumes. The two sit along the almost 3-mile-long Avenue of the Dead, an ancient thoroughfare that is flanked by long abandoned buildings, small temples and palaces that offer a testimony to the transitory nature of human culture. So there we were, my parents, my brother, and I, under the hot summer sun, taking it all in. The glory of a decaying city that at its zenith had been one of the largest in the world, a city that was built to align with the sun, the moon, and the planets when it happened. We saw Santa Claus. Or rather, we saw Santa Clauses. There were about 24 of them. Men in all shapes and sizes, sporting long white beards and dressed identically. Each Santa wore red shorts, white shirt, short-sleeved shirt, red suspenders, and red boots. A handful of them had on their red elfin caps, but most were head bare in the hot summer sun. They were trundling along the Avenue of the Dead. Some had cameras and were taking photographs. Others explored the avenue's edge and examined the decrepit buildings. They were laughing, smiling, joking, clearly enjoying themselves. Never one to be shy of strangers, my mother approached them. The Santa Clauses, she learned, were on the last day of a Santa Claus convention. They had concluded whatever business gets conducted at a Santa Claus convention. Perhaps panel discussions on sliding down chimneys, sessions on flying reindeer husbandry. I do not know. And now they were together enjoying a bit of rest and relaxation before heading back to wherever it was they came from. Christmas in July, amid the pyramids. It is a sight I will never forget. One of those magical moments when the world opens up and whatever stable order of things we assume to be fixed is washed away in an unexpected gesture of imagination. The ordinary order can be washed away in an unexpected instance of imagination. Christmas has a simple message. It's that humanity always has hope. It teaches that it is possible that the dismal march of ordinary time, filled with its empires that dominate, wars that are unending, families that feud, people who suffer from aloneness, friends who are alienated, poverty that endures, and violence that seems ubiquitous, can somehow be shifted into a bright kingdom for all. The Christian story itself is a miserable affair. It has an ignominious beginning and an undignified ending. It opens with the first Christmas, an unpleasant day to be sure. An undocumented family of migrants, the day laborer Joseph and his wife Mary, travel along the edge of a powerful empire seeking shelter in what I can imagine is the cold and dark. Mary goes into labor. No one will provide her with a warm place to give birth. She's not welcomed by the innkeeper. She's forced to deliver her baby in a manger among livestock. The story ends on an equally unpleasant note. Jesus dies at the hands of the Roman Empire. He dies a revolutionary, preaching a doctrine of love and acceptance to the most marginalized. He dies as most revolutionaries who preach love die from the brutal violence of a cruel state. And yet from this unpleasant beginning and unpleasant ending, we get a story of hope and a holiday of inspiration. We sing, "What child is this?" and tell tales of a Messiah, a king who some 2,000 years ago was born to save the world. We celebrate this event and tell this story, even though many Unitarian Universalists are at best skeptical about its authenticity. At a minimum, we are skeptical because we have, as a religious tradition, long held a different vision of who Jesus was than the one depicted in most of the carols and lessons that we hear. The classic carols from our own tradition do not focus on Jesus the Messiah. They offer up the enduring hope that the march of ordinary time can be ruptured and what has long seemed impossible, peace on earth and goodwill to all, will somehow, some way become possible. "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear" is one example of this. It was written by the Unitarian minister, the Reverend Edmund Hamilton Sears, in the middle of the 19th century after the Mexican-American War. It is a much beloved carol, and yet it never directly mentions Jesus. Instead, it focuses on the hoped-for day, that day that has not yet come and might never come, when peace shall reign all over the earth, its ancient splendor fling. I tell you this in what is my last homily of the year. I tell you this on what is my last homily of the decade. I tell you this as we sit at the cusp of what will most likely be one of the most crucial decades in human history, the decade when we as a human species decide whether or not we will address the climate emergency. I tell you this in an era when it often seems that hope is hard, if not impossible, to find. This country's political leaders and corporate powers appear to be consciously choosing ecological collapse over a sustainable future. This country's political leaders seem to be choosing cruelty over kindness. They cast out the undocumented and marginalized from the United States, just as the story tells us the undocumented Jesus, Mary, and Joseph were cast out of an inn 2,000 years ago. And yet, hope can appear from nowhere. In the Christmas story, it appears as a child in a manger. In our tradition, we teach that it can appear unexpectedly in the form of any child. As we said earlier, no wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save mankind. In the face of the climate crisis, it seems that hope might be found in the generation of young people who are demanding the impossible, demanding a sustainable future for themselves. Perhaps they are the babes who will save humanity. For each night that a child is born is a holy night, a night that brings what was previously unimagined into the realm of the possible. Hope can appear from nowhere. This Christmas message need not be a social one. It can be a personal one as well. If you have struggles in your life, if this Christmas world seems grim, remember that hope can appear from nowhere. If you are struggling with addiction, if you are struggling with unemployment, if you are alienated from your friends or your family, if you are alone, if your marriage is in trouble, if you're struggling in school, remember that hope can rise up from the most unexpected places. It can come from a friend. It can come from members of this congregation. It can come from a stranger you do not know. It can arrive from the unimagined place. Hope, Christmas is meant to remind us, ever endures. Hope, Christmas teaches us, can appear from seemingly nowhere, like a child born in a manger, or like a flock of Santas who appear amid the pyramids, not only unexpected, but unimaginable. Hope, Christmas tells us, is always on the horizon. The star of hope, may appear only for a moment, but it shines this Christmas. And so, whatever struggle you face in your lives, whatever struggles we face in our lives together, may we each find hope in unexpected places. Merry Christmas. Much love to all of you. Have a wonderful holiday, and amen.